very warm welcome to APSC Bro. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is border issues in the northeastern states. Now see, this is important from both exam point of view, but also as a aware citizen you should know what are the issues that are being going on, because recently you will see lot of news on the border disputes, like the MOU signed between Assam and Arunachal, the border strife in which people were killed in Assam and Mizoram, Assam and Meghalaya. Similarly, a lot of violence was going on. So these are very important topics from the current affairs which are important from any exam point of view. It can be asked in UPSC, it can be asked in any state PSC examination, in the mains examination. The questions come in different ways, like they can ask you separately, like they can ask you what is the MOU signed between Assam and Arunachal, how do you think it is going to affect the relationship between the two states, or they can ask you the recent last year incident on the Assam-Mizoram border which led to the death of many people. What do you think it happened and how it can be solved? Or they can also bring in the issues of between Assam and Meghalaya borders. They can ask you separately, or they can ask you an overview of the northeastern states, like they can ask discuss the existing border disputes between Assam and neighboring states, what can be the way forward. Or they can ask you the constitutional mechanisms to resolve the interstate, this is not water, interstate disputes that have failed to address the solve the problems, discuss with reference to Assam's border disputes with neighboring states. So they can ask you overall question on the entire northeastern states, or they can ask you specifically between two states. Okay, so that's why it is very important. Now before, like suppose there is any question on border disputes, your answer has to be based on three parts, as we have discussed in our previous videos. Introduction, in which you will just give the factual details, like what is the border involved, what are the issues involved, simply. In the body part, you will discuss why these disputes are there, what is the consequences of these disputes, what is the history of these disputes. You'll give those details in the body part. In the conclusion part, you'll give you what is the way forward, like why, how do you think these disputes can be solved, and end your answer with a positive input. Okay, now see, this video is not only for exam point of view, but as a general awareness point of view also. We'll be discussing each and every dispute in detail, like what is the main reason behind the disputes. Okay, now before going into the details, one thing is the background of the dispute. Now if you see, all the disputes that are involved in the northeastern states involves Assam. Like there's dispute between Assam and Arunachal, Assam and Nagaland, Assam and Mizoram, Assam and Meghalaya. Now there were many questions in social media and other forums ki, why is always Assam involved in these disputes? Does Assam government has to do something with it? The answer is completely no. See, these states, Arunachal, Nagaland, Mizoram and Meghalaya, they were carved out of Assam. Now when these states were demarcated, when they were separated from Assam post-independence, the borders of the states were not clearly demarcated. And because of this, there was confusion between the two states regarding the exact border in certain places, because of which disputes were there. Now the local people were failed to understand which is the exact boundary, because of which there were quarrels and disputes. Now no government can be blamed for it exactly. You cannot blame Arunachal for it, or you can't blame Assam for it. It's just that when they were demarcated, clear demarcation were not done. That is the only reason. Okay. Now you see other northeastern states like Manipur and Tripura, they doesn't have any border dispute. Why is that? Rest all northeastern states has disputes. Why Manipur and Tripura doesn't have any border dispute with Assam? The reason is this: Tripura and Manipur were princely states. Okay, and they had already demarcated boundaries during the British rule, clearly demarcated boundaries, because of which they doesn't have any dispute with Assam. Whereas all other states like Arunachal, Nagaland, Mizoram and Meghalaya, they were demarcated from Assam post-independence, and the borders were not clearly demarcated, because of which disputes exist. Okay. Now let us go into the details. Now before going into the details of each and every border, you have to understand what are the borders exactly exist. Okay. Now if you see, Assam and Arunachal shares a border of 804.1 kilometer. 8 districts are involved of Assam, in which the North Bank districts like Udalguri, Sunitpur, Bishwanath, Lakhimpur, and Dhemarji shares border with Arunachal, and the South Bank districts like Soraideo, Tinsukia, and Dibrugarh. Okay. In Assam and Mizoram, you see 3 districts of Assam, Kachar, Hailakandi, and Karimganj, which shares border with Mizoram. And similarly, Mizoram's 3 districts, Kolasib, Mamit, and Aizawl, shares border with Assam. Assam and Nagaland, we have 512 kilometers of border, in which 4 districts of Assam, mainly in this part, Soraideo, Sibsagar, Jorhat, and Golaghat. These 4 districts shares border with Nagaland. Now Meghalaya shares the maximum border with Assam with 884 kilometers, and it borders West Karbi Anglong, Dima Hasao, Morigao, Kamrup Metro, Kamrup Rural, Gwalpara, Dhubri, and South Salmar districts. So these are the 4 main borders of Assam in which disputes exist, out of which Meghalaya has the longest boundary, followed by Arunachal, then Nagaland, and finally Mizoram. Okay. Now first let us come into the details of Assam and Arunachal border dispute. Now the 2 states shares roughly 800 kilometers of border, and recently there has been a MOU signed in which 124 border villages, which spans about 12 districts of Arunachal and 8 districts of Assam. Now you have to understand why the border issue exists. Now before Arunachal was demarcated as a separate state called Arunachal Pradesh, it was known as Northeastern Frontier Agency, or NEFA. NEFA was carved out of Assam in 1954, and at that time a subcommittee was formed under Assam's Chief Minister Gopinath Bordoloi. Now in 1951 he put his recommendations, in which around 3648 kilometers of plain area of Balipara of Sonitpur district and Hodia of then Lakhimpur and now Tinsukia district were transferred from NEFA to Assam. Okay. So as per the recommendation of Gopinath Bordoloi committee in 1951, 3648 kilometers of area was transferred from Arunachal to Assam. Okay. Now when Arunachal Pradesh was formed and reorganization of Northeast was done, several forested tracts were, which traditionally they say, the Arunachal say, is that those tracts which belong to their tribal chiefs were transferred to Assam. Okay. And then they said that this cannot be done, this belongs to our chiefs and it cannot be transferred to Assam. So a tripartite committee was formed in 1987, which recommended that certain territories has to be transferred back from Assam to Arunachal. Now what happened? Gopinath Bordoloi committee transferred certain land from Arunachal to Assam, and then Arunachal Pradesh had their grievances over it. In 1987, another committee was formed which recommended transfer of certain lands from Assam back to Arunachal. Now, Assam contested this decision in Supreme Court. Now, we know Supreme Court can solve the disputes between 2 states under its original jurisdiction. Okay, and hence a suit was filed against the decision by Assam. So Assam-Arunachal border dispute is under trial in the Supreme Court. So this is the reason why the border issues between Assam and Arunachal government exist, because the boundary was not demarcated properly. There are certain tracts of land in which the people of both the states claim their ownership, and hence there is a problem. So there is a problem between the 2 governments which is under trial in the Supreme Court. Now if you come to Assam and Mizoram, because Assam and Mizoram border is very volatile recently, and there had been incidents in which a lot of people were killed recently. Okay, I have to understand why this problem exists. Now we know that 3 districts of Assam shares border with 3 districts of Mizoram, as we have discussed earlier. Why this problem arises, we have to understand. The conflict between when the entire northeast was under British rule, Mizoram was called Lusai Hills. Okay, and there were problems between the British and the Lusai Hills communities, and hence there was a need to demarcate the boundary, and hence the Deputy Commissioner of Kachar at that time, John Ware, they did a treaty or boundary agreement with the Lusai or the Mizo people. It was in 1871, under which 46 boundary pillars were demarcated, and the boundary between the British rule and the Lusai Hills were demarcated. Now, again, after that, in 1933, a notification was issued which demarcated the inner line between Assam and the Lusai Hills. Okay, so there are two things. One, in 1871, when they demarcated the boundary with boundary pillars, and then in 1933, when there was a notification which demarcated the inner line, that is the boundary between Assam and the Lusai Hills. Okay, so when after that Mizoram was made a separate state and the Northeastern Reorganization Act was passed in 1971, the demarcation was on the basis of 1933. Okay, now in 1972, when Mizoram was carved out of Assam as union territory and then as a state, the border between Assam and Mizoram was on the basis of 1933 wala notification. Okay, previously Mizoram didn't have any problem, but there was a border incident in 2007, after which Mizoram declared that it will not accept the present boundary with Assam, and which was based on 1933. On the other hand, according to Mizoram, the 1875 notification under the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873 should be the basis for delineating the border and not 1933. So according to Mizoram, 1933 notification should not be followed, 1875 notification should be followed, and this is their claim. Okay, on the other hand, according to Assam, that the 1875 notification which Mizoram wants to follow simply is a line limiting the administrative extent of Assam government and was never meant as a boundary line. According to Assam, the 1875 notification cannot be followed because it is simply a demarcation of the administrative extent of Assam government and cannot be treated as a boundary line. Hence, 1933 notification has to be followed. So according to Assam, 1933 demarcation has to be followed, and according to Mizoram, 1875 demarcation has to be followed, and this is the reason of conflict between the two governments. You have to understand this. When you mention these facts in your answer, the answer weightage of your answer will be much more and you will be getting more marks. Okay, now if you come to Assam and Nagaland, you see Assam and Nagaland share borders here. Shivsagar, Jorhat, Golaghat districts of Assam shares borders in Mon, Longlang, Mokoksang and Okha district of Nagaland. Now the same issues with other states as it is. The Nagaland claims that the foothill parts of the border, which includes the plains also, was originally under the influence of the Naga chiefs and the Naga tribes, and after the demarcation of Assam and Nagaland, this came under Assam, and hence they are still claiming their territory over those foothill region or the plain regions. Okay, now there had been issues, historical claims of Nagaland over these places, and because of which the disturbed area belt was declared along the border of Assam and Nagaland. Okay, several interim agreements were signed in 1972. Okay, which put the forest of Geliki, Abhoypur, Tiru Hills, Doyang Valley, etc. off the limits for activity of construction of roads. Okay, so they declared that certain areas as DAB, okay, And according to those declarations, this area will place a disturbed area and no construction of roads or infrastructure can be done by other governments. Okay. There are a lot of committees that were formed to solve the issues of border issues between Assam and Nagaland. Okay, like in 1971, in 1985, Sastry Commission, Tarun Chatterjee Commission, mediators of Sriram Pansu and Niranjan Bhatt 2010. So several committees were formed to solve this issue of borders between Assam and Nagaland, but yet till now we don't have a very concrete solution. Okay, but now under this government of Assam and Nagaland, we are going through talks, we are going through deliberations to solve these issues. So now if we come to the next important border dispute of the northeastern states, that is Assam and Meghalaya. You can see a lot of news in the recent times in which a lot of violence uh, was going on between the two borders. Okay, now if you see, Meghalaya shares borders with the Jaintia Hills and Dima Hasao, Karbi Anglong, Kamrup Metropolitan, Kamrup Rural, Gwalpara, and there were issues in these places. These red areas usually mark the places where disputes were going on. Okay, between the Rivai district of Meghalaya and Karbi Anglong, Kamrup, a lot of issues were going on recently. Now, if you see why these issues are going on, historical reason. Assam and Meghalaya shares a 885-kilometer long border, and as of now, there are 12 points of dispute between the two states. Okay, Assam-Meghalaya border dispute are of Upper Tarabari, Gazang Reserve, Langpi, Borduar, Baklapara, Nagaon, Nongwa, Khanapara, Pilankata, Desdemore, Block 1 and Block 2, Khanduli and Retachera. These are the places which usually see these violences and these disputes. Now, the problem between Assam and Meghalaya was when the Meghalaya challenged the Assam Reorganization Act of 1971. In 1951, there was a Bodloy Committee, okay, in which Block 1 and 2 of the Jaintia Hills were transferred to the Mikri Hills, that is the Karbi Anglong district of Assam, and areas in Garo Hills were transferred to Gwalpara district of Assam. The areas in Rivoi district were also transferred to Kamrup district of Assam. Okay. Now, as per the 1951 committee decisions, certain places of Jaintia Hills, the Garo Hills, and the Rivoi district were transferred to various districts of Assam, and the 1969 Reorganization Act, which demarcated the area between Assam and Meghalaya, also was based on this committee, and these areas were transferred to Assam, and Meghalaya said that this cannot be done. These places originally belong to us and it cannot be transferred to Assam, and this is the reason of the dispute. Meghalaya bases its case on the survey maps of 1929 and notifications of 1878 and 1951, while Assam wants to go by the recommendation of the Chorasan Committee. So both the states want to go by different notification, different committee results, because of which the disputes still exist between the Assam-Meghalaya borders. But recently talks are being carried out, and we hope that in the recent times these disputes will be solved. Okay, now you see there are a lot of issues we have discussed. What is the history behind these disputes? Why these disputes occur? They have to understand why are these disputes still existing there. What are the main reasons for these disputes? First thing, the area was not demarcated, the boundary was not demarcated. Second reason, see, cartographers' lines are usually drawn on survey maps. Whenever there you have to demarcate borders or demarcate any area in a map, you have to draw cartographer's line. Now the usual scale of this cartographer line is that 1 centimeter is to 1 kilometer scale. Now to understand this, if you draw a 1 centimeter long line in that map, it is equal to 1 kilometer long in the actual ground. So when you're demarcating, suppose I take a map and demarcate boundaries between two areas, even if my pen slips by a centimeter, I'm going to miss that land by 1 kilometer. If I shift my land, suppose this is one area, I want to demarcate this land. Now even if I shift this land area by 1 centimeter, I am going to take 1 kilometer area from this A to B. So this is the main reason. So when these demarcations were made on maps, there were certain places where the actual demarcation was not done, and even if there was slight mistake in the demarcation, there was a huge impact on the actual ground. Okay, now both, see, northeast place is usually full of hills and forests and other things. Usually the borders between the states, all the states, are mostly forest land. And when you are drawing a line through a forest, there is a high chance that your demarcation is not exact, and because of which there will be issues in the future. Now, as long as this demarcation were made in the maps, in the cartography maps, it did not matter as long as it was one state. As long as this entire place was one state, it did not matter. But now, once the states were divided, all these demarcations that we made before, this started to make sense. Now, when these were made interstate borders, both the governments, state governments, started exercising their powers. Police posts were established, land ownership were detailed. Now, when these things are being done, then these disputes started coming up. Before, it doesn't make any change, any difference. Ki a line is made through the forest land, it didn't make any difference to people from either side of the line. But once this line became the state border, when border posts were established, when jurisdictions were demarcated, this started making sense, and then the disputes started coming up. Okay. The government could not resolve the issues of tribal areas in the time of border formation. These boundaries still do not follow, confine, like these boundaries didn't make sense with the tribal people that existed in the borders. Why they were not discussed, the tribal peoples, their territories were not discussed, and simply a boundary was made because of which issues are still rising up. Another important thing is the identity crisis. Now see, Northeast is a melting pot of different communities. We have Negrito people, we have Australoid, we have Mediterranean people, we have Mongoloid people, we have different ethnic groups in here. Now, when this many different ethnic groups exist in one place, there will always be a problem of identity crisis, and there will be a great demand of establishing one's identity, which we still see. Like Mizo people wants to establish their identity, Naga people wants to establish their Naga identity, like the Nagalim. Okay, Boro people wants to establish their identity. So whenever these people will try to establish their identity, this border disputes and separatism will come up, and there will be problem of this border disputes. Whenever I want this people, my people have to make a territory here, I'll always try to demarcate my territory, and whenever I'll try to demarcate my territory, there will be disputes with the other people who are residing nearby. So that is one reason because of which these disputes exist. Next, separatist movement. We know different states of Northeast have this separatist movement going on, and because of this, lot of border disputes exist. Lack of development projects in this area, low development, poverty, illiteracy are other issues in these border areas, because of which there are disputes and quarrels between people from either side of the borders, which results in border disputes. Okay. Now we have discussed in details what are the various issues because of which the border disputes exist. Now if you see what is the way forward. Okay. First thing, the boundaries has to be clearly demarcated, and we can use satellite mapping for that. Once we demarcate the exact boundary between the two states, like we are going to talks, after going to talk, we have to sit down, we have to make the demarcation very clear so that there is no further issues in the future. Okay. Interstate council is a very important tool which can play a big role in negotiation and coming into one solution. The interstate council is as per article number 263 of the constitution, which deals with the solving of problems between various states. Zonal councils which existed before can be revived and be used in solving the border issues. So there are various ways to which we can move forward in solving the border issues, first thing we have to use the community. We have to involve the community, people from both sides of the border, while coming at a solution. The various northeastern governments like Assam government, Arunachal government, Meghalaya government, Mizoram government, they are coming together for talks. This has to be carried out, and fruitful results has to be brought out, concrete results with proper demarcation. See, India is the epitome of unity in diversity, and we cannot lose it. Okay, we cannot afford to have so many disputes in our land. India involves the spirit of cooperative federalism, and this has to be the key word: cooperative federalism between various states, specifically in the northeastern state, being a very volatile region bordering China. We cannot afford to have so many disputes among us. We have to be cooperative with each other. We have to bring this feeling of unity in diversity and solve our issues through talks and through deliberations. This is the only way forward. Okay, so we have discussed the various disputes that involves the northeastern states. I hope this video is very helpful for you, not only from exam point of view, but from general awareness point of view also. Now we have discussed this till now from our mains perspective. Now we'll come to certain questions that can be asked from these topics in the prelims examination. Like, Assam shares borders with how many states? 5, 7, 6, 4. The answer is 7. All the other 6 northeastern states plus West Bengal. So total 7 states. Assam shares longest border with which state? We have discussed this in our video. Assam shares longest border with Meghalaya, around 885 kilometers, followed by Arunachal, around 800 kilometers, followed by Nagaland, and then Mizoram. Okay. Next question. Which article deals with the Interstate Council? We have discussed this. The answer is 263 article. Under which jurisdiction the power of the Supreme Court to deal with interstate disputes exists? Under which kind of jurisdiction? Appellate, original, advisory, none of the above. The answer is original jurisdiction. Under the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, it deals with the issues between center and the state or between two states. Okay, so these are the questions that might be asked from this topic in prelims examinations. I hope this video was helpful for you. Please like and subscribe our channel, share this video, share the channel links with your friends and family. Help us to help you better. Thank you so much.